Back in the summer of 2023, Milan signed two Americans. Christian Pulisic moved from Chelsea to Milan with the goal of getting consistent minutes and getting his club career back on track, which he did. Yunus Musah moved from a struggling Valencia side to Milan so he could continue his development in a tougher environment while playing for a better team. Now, the season's almost done, and today we're going to be talking about these two players and their season with Milan. Did they overachieve? Underachieve? Was it a success? Did they fail? How did they do? Hi, it's Inirhan Filippo, and welcome to Tactical Manager TV, and welcome to this episode where we're going to be talking about and breaking down the season for Christian Pulisic and Yunus Musah while playing for AC Milan. And as always, we have a special guest for today's episode, and his name is Martino Puccio. He works with Peacock streaming service, The Athletic, and does content for Sempre Milan, an American Milan expert. And look, there's no denying that Pulisic has been tremendous in Italy this season. He's been really good. It's been a successful season. And I think that's due to the tremendous upgrade that is going from English food to Italian food. I mean, that's not even debatable. You have to choose between pizza or fish and chips and beans during breakfast. As for Yunus Musah, he has done okay in Italy. Nothing great, nothing bad. We're going to talk about that later in the video. And that's probably because, you see, there's not that big of an upgrade between Spanish food and Italian food, in my opinion. Why am I saying all of this? I don't know. You can just let me know in the comment section which country in the world has the best food. You can let me know in the comment section, and this question just randomly came up in my head, so I decided to ask you. Sorry, sometimes I have these random questions and I don't know who to ask, so I ask the viewers. With that said, drop a like in the video before we start. And once again, I'm going to announce this. We will be doing this replica Milan jersey giveaway for all the Patreon members. The link to join the Patreon is in the description of this video if you'd like to join. And there's many more perks that I don't feel like talking about right now. And drop a like in this video. And that's all. Let's bring in Martino and talk about Pulisic and Musah. Okay, everyone. Today, you all are going to hear a different opinion about the Americans that play for Milan. You are all probably tired of hearing myself talk about Pulisic, Musah, the good and the bad from both players. But today, we have someone that really knows this team very well, much better than myself. Martino Puccio, how are you doing, man?
Good. Happy to be on here. Obviously, been following all the work closer this year because there haven't been any Americans in Milan since. Well, actually, Dest was there for the loan, but
A little bit.
prior to that. So it's been exciting to see the growth, just even in Serie A in general, because I try and be a Serie A supporter as a whole sometimes, but it's tough when Way and McKennie are on Juve. But it's been an exciting season for sure, as an Italian American especially.
And it's good that now you have, we're going to talk about Pulisic and Musah, and especially Musah will be the most debatable one in terms of success. I think Pulisic's not really debatable, the success he's had with Milan, but probably the first two Americans that have legitimate success with Milan, despite no trophies so far. Hopefully we get one this season or maybe next season, whatever. But there's been success. Musah, debatable. We're going to get to that. I don't think the season has been as good as some people think. It hasn't been also bad by any means. So before we talk about Yunus Musah, let's talk about the main character, which is Christian Pulisic. Because when you talk about U.S. men's national team, he's currently the best player the United States has. One can argue, oh, this guy's more talented or this, and that's like, doesn't matter. The best player is Christian Pulisic. And I would even argue Christian Pulisic's the best U.S. men's national team player we've ever had. Not an accomplishment, but in terms of level of play, we've never had an American play at this level so well. They're going to bring up Dempsey in the Premier League for like 2 seasons or maybe 3.
I think, it's that singular year that like everybody points to, and I
the
get
17 goal season, but he's had other good seasons. But I think no one's played at the level. Pulisic won a Champions League actually playing, and right now he comes to Milan, which right now is the second best team in the Serie A, and he is a protagonist of the team among the best players, which we're going to talk about the best player in Milan very soon, Rafael Leao. But let me ask you one thing. Pulisic at the time of this recording, and I'm going to mention the specific stats. We're recording this probably by the time people are watching this. There's been one more game. Who knows? He might have scored more. But he has 9 goals, 6 assists in the Serie A, has a goal in the Champions League, 2 in the Europa League, 1 assist in the Europa League, a total of 20 goal contributions in the first season with Milan. Has he been the signing of the season in Italy?
I think if Marcus Thuram and Inter weren't so kind of borderline legendary at this point for this season, I would say absolutely. But it's really hard to kind of go against what Thuram has brought there. But I mean, Pulisic, like outside of that, has just been way above expectations for a lot of people. I think probably the biggest concern, if you were familiar with Pulisic, was just the injuries, because you knew he performed in 2 of the top leagues that over the past 10 to 15 years, Bundesliga and Premier League have been better than Serie A as a whole in Europe and domestically, the teams that they put out. So everybody kind of knew, because you also saw it when he went back with the national team, how well he was still playing. It was just about fit. It was about opportunity and health. I think he finally got all of that this year. And coupled with the fact that I guess you could say he's entering his prime if he hasn't already. So I think it was the perfect combination for him. And the price tag was not that high. We know he had 1 year left on his deal, but to get, in my opinion, and I guess your opinion as well, the greatest American player of all time for your team in a part of an American football history, especially for the men's side, I don't think the sport's ever been more popular. I think it's only going to continue to get more popular in the States. So when you have that perfect mixture of being able to watch these players like Pulisic, I think it's a home run. But Thuram cost Inter nothing. So with that, I think so. But Pulisic has been doing it on all levels this season. And again, we should mention out of position, or his best position, right? Because everybody would say that he's best on the left, but this year has been phenomenal. And he surprised a lot of people with his technical ability, because like we were kind of saying before we started the video, that there's this stigma of Americans. I guess a lot of people would deem them as like better athletes, not the greatest technical ability in the world. But Pulisic, by far, I mean, he's scoring these goals on his left and right foot. And I think that surprised a lot of people. But if you've been watching him for a while, this is no surprise here.
What's actually fascinating is I was 100% certain that Pulisic is better on the left wing. Now I am not so sure. I think it's debatable. He's proven that he's got a killer left foot, actually. Scoring. Have I gone crazy? But I think half of his goals were with his left foot from Milan.
Especially the last few, prior to this weekend when he came on as a substitute in the last match before international break, or even Fiorentina. Yeah, they were scored on his left foot in Europa League. I can't really remember too many right-footed goals. Maybe I think his first goal with Milan was his right foot. That was outside the box. It was a rocket. But other than that, yeah, it's just pure technical ability. There's been tons of shots that have been saved that were great saves by keepers that he had on target with his left foot as well. But this goes back to the start of his European career, right? Like we saw him play at Dortmund on the right side where he had success. Even at Chelsea, spells there, he was on the right side having success as well. I think we would just assume that he's far better passer on his right foot than he is on his left. So that would kind of make you inclined to think that he's better on the left side. But at this point, I think he is so good technically that he could play anywhere, because we've seen him success as a 10, right winger, left winger. But I do think it is credit to Milan's attack as well, that they give him a little bit more freedom on the right side. Because there weren't many great players on Chelsea on the left wing in recent years as well. And especially not at the level that Leao is at. So I think he has more of that freedom there. The link up with Giroud is huge for him because of that chemistry they also had. And even Loftus-Cheek coming along as well. But I mean, right now, I think he has a home there. You're not going to really see him lose that position because he's such in great form. So it's been great to see. I think you're probably right at this point. But again, with the national team, you kind of have to play the guys on the right, like Tim Weah, that have been succeeding there, especially in World Cup qualifying. I think he was one of their better players. So I think you keep Pulisic on that side, but same goes for Milan, right? Like if it's working on the right, you don't change it.
Yeah, and the thing with Pulisic that I think Chelsea, there were many issues. Chelsea, as you can see right now, they've been a mess for over 2 seasons, almost 2 seasons, pretty much.
Yeah.
He did enjoy success there, winning the Champions League and playing. Right, it wasn't like he was just there. He played a
Yeah.
massive role in the Champions League in the semifinals, a goal and assist against Real Madrid. Played a big role on helping Chelsea win that Champions League. Good performances in the quarterfinals, round of 16. The thing with Pulisic with Chelsea, it seemed like he never had a coach. So with Milan, it looks like he arrived and Pioli kind of said, "Hey, it's your position to lose.
Yeah.
So you go there, and if you perform, you're going to keep." So he was given time, and obviously he started off very well. While with Chelsea, it was weird. Sometimes he would play well and then get benched for 2 games. It almost seemed like, nah, it doesn't matter what you do, you're not going to be a starter here unless you just are scoring hat tricks. And again, um, players sometimes need that push. And Pulisic is not a world class player, in my opinion, but he's an
Uh,
elite winger, and he needs the coach to trust him and give him time, and he'll make things happen. But if you give him like random 20-minute cameos here and there and then bench him for 2 games, he's never going to get it going. He's also a streaky player. I noticed that. He goes through very cold streaks and
mhm.
hot streaks. So you need to let him go. And Milan has been doing that. But let's keep going here with Pulisic because it's not even debatable that he's been great this season for Milan.
Mhm.
Rafael Leao and Pulisic. You mentioned Rafael Leao. To me, he is the best player Milan has right now. Been talking about him for quite some time. I thought Portugal made a mistake in the World Cup not starting him. Lots of things that can go. Rafael Leao, and I'm going to give you my honest opinion, he's also very frustrating to watch at times. I don't think by any means he is by definition a selfish player. Even when you look at the stats, he has 9 assists this season. While Pulisic, for example, has 6. So if you're going to go selfish, he is passing the ball. He is finding his teammates. But he is frustrating to watch at times because he tries to make things happen very often. And then the decision making sometimes lacks in the final third. That's probably like the one thing you could tweak him. And then he can be at that next level of I don't know, like world superstar soccer
He's
player.
top 10 in Ballon d'Or. Like,
Yeah.
honestly,
But
like
I'm just
it's
saying, like, he could, like, let's put it this way. Would you ignore age? Would you put him ahead of Mo Salah, for example?
no, Salah's
That's my
incredible.
point. Mo Salah's decision making in the final third is brilliant. It's as good as his. Like,
He's
but
just
it
a
does
better
seem
goal
like,
scorer. Yeah.
Rafael Leão has the dribbling ability, the athletic ability, the technique. That final third, he is good in the final third, but the decision making doesn't seem to click. But here's the thing: very often, from a little bit from U.S. men's national team fans, and we even saw it in the U.S. media, some of that come up, where they rumored that Pulisic and Leão wouldn't get along. It was a load of crap, wasn't it?
I mean, first of all, the guy Leao as a person and a player, he's always smiling. First of all, he's not even coming in with bad attitudes ever. Sometimes body language FC is like what I like to call them, where everybody's just trying to like go off of these guys' mood when they don't even know them as players. They kind of also a large majority of fans kind of just got this Rafael Leao experience, so a lot of people don't really know him like that. He's always kind of had this body language and sort of attitude. Like it's if you're a baseball fan, I imagine some people might be, but you know, it's very similar to Robinson Cano, where he's sort of this nonchalant type of player that isn't always the most energetic type that I guess, I don't know, like a Gattuso would be that sort of player in my mind that everybody loves that mentality that he seems to care all the time. Just because Leao may or may not be doing something doesn't mean he's like selfish or dislikes somebody. And also him and Pulisic are a little bit more of introvert personalities too. So like they're not always going to be like showing how much like they love each other, right? And this always goes for the other players that they played with in the past too. It's just not their type of personality. I think a lot of players lead differently than some others. Maybe he doesn't have the style that some people would think that somebody would have for Milan, right? Because it's one of the biggest clubs in the world. They think that they have to lead like Maldini did, but that's not always the case. Not everybody has the same personality. I think it was just kind of made up. Like Pulisic with that goal, right? Because that's the one everybody likes to talk about and point towards. Pulisic had to do his job. Everybody is taught when you're growing up playing, you have to poach and crash the net, right? Because you don't know what's going to happen. It looked like there was going to be a goal line clearance. You can't guarantee anything in this sport. And especially in knockout football, when you're worried about 1 or 2 goal difference, you have to do what you can to collect any goal possible. I think Pulisic did a good job in that moment. And Milan and Leao were obviously very frustrated by that performance. Once again, they go up a man and they're playing down to their opponents, which has been a common theme the past 2 years since they won the league title. So when that kind of stuff happens, you're going to get those frustrations from players. It doesn't mean that he's angry that he stole a goal. Like even Pulisic talked about it post-match. They were frustrated by the way they played. It has nothing to do with who gets this goal or that goal. The goals will come in bunches, and I'm sure from time to time players might steal a goal from another player. But I don't think these guys have that ego that the media was sort of portraying.
What's funny about the media portraying that is the one guy that was portraying that in the media was actually a former player. So as a former player, he should know all of that. I can see fandom. Fandom is allowed to overreact in certain instances because you're being a fan. So I get pissed at it. Like when Leao has the opportunity to assist Pulisic and he does, I'm like, why? Why didn't you just do it? Mainly because I want Milan to be successful, but I'm also rooting mainly for the Americans there. You know that I don't like to portray as a fake fan. I'm not a Milan fan. I am
Yeah,
rooting for Milan at the moment. I've always had a bit of a fandom for Milan because I watched them quite a bit in the Kaká days. I've always enjoyed
sure.
it. And when Pato got there, I was hyped for that. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. But I don't pretend to be like, hey, I'm a diehard Milan. No, no, no. I'm there because you guys got specific players that I follow, root for, and I am with you guys until then. And then if they leave, I'll just kind of follow Milan and see what's going on. Like I followed you guys a little bit more because of Leao in the past. I wasn't rooting for Leao, but I just thought it was an interesting player. But yeah, it's just fascinating to me that they made up that specific rumor. Um, but it is what it is. Last but not least on Pulisic, and then we'll quickly dive into Yunus Musah. Uh, let's say Leão stays with Milan, which it looks like he might. He's
Yeah.
got that left wing position locked. Do you think there's any chance that Milan would look to upgrade Pulisic's position or add competition to it, or they're like, no, this is our guy. There's no reason to do that because there were rumors of Milan trying to sign what's the name of that player from Bologna that's been really good.
Orsolini was somebody that they were interested in a couple years back, and that's just really like one thing because of his contract and all that kind of stuff. That would have happened already. They spent nearly 50 million. It depends on bonuses with Chukwueze on 2 players to play on the right side. Pulisic has already proven, as we mentioned, to win some major trophies on the European level. Does he necessarily have to start all 38 games from the right side? No. I think that's why when you're a squad like Milan and you're aiming for bigger trophies like the Champions League, which they probably won't win anytime soon, but the point being is that they're competing on all these fronts. Pulisic has an injury history, and like whether that's his fault or Chelsea's fault or whatever, you need to rotate some of these guys. I don't think they're going to upgrade on that position because, as we mentioned, how many better players on the right side are you going to get in Serie A this year? He's been the best right winger in the league, despite the disagreement of some people on the internet.
It's X. It's X. You have
On
to
X, yeah,
disagree.
X. Well, because it's chaotic on there these days. But the point remains though, like how much better can you really get? And is it worth spending that money when you're a Serie A club where finances are few and far between? Milan have some positions that they could clearly upgrade, right back, possibly another center back, a number 6, and obviously a striker. There's no reason to upgrade it. And when Chukwueze is finally assimilating within the squad, it's great to give Pulisic a rest because now I want to see Pulisic start against Roma, for example, in Europa League, and then give Chukwueze some more minutes in Lecce because a fresh Pulisic is a much better one because he brings a lot more to the table than these goal contributions. He's had great work rate as well that some people kind of omit for him, but yeah, I don't think they're upgrading anytime soon. The thing to understand about Italian reports in football out there is that take everything with a grain of salt. Because I've seen players like Biabiani. I don't know if anybody knows this, but he was holding a Milan scarf and taking pictures, and he never signed for the club. So until that contract is deposited into the league, I would not listen to many rumors.
And what you said is factually true because if you're going to upgrade on Pulisic, there's not that many players. It's not like you have 50 players to choose, which means you're probably going to have to pay like 70, 80 million euros to get a player to like, no, this guy is 100% better than Pulisic. Otherwise, you're going to probably be paying 50 to 40 for a player that's going to be in the same level or worse.
That's just a fee too, and that's not even the issue with Italian clubs paying these high wages. Milan can't afford that. They just had their best financial year in like 20 years. So, like when I first started watching the club like 20 something years ago, right? Like it's a different situation. It's just, for example, right, the newly promoted clubs into the Premier League get more money for making it into the Premier League than the champions of Italy get. So the Scudetto winners aren't even getting close to the amount that I don't know, whoever's
a championship side, like a Leeds this season, maybe.
Exactly. So like, West Ham have set fees or sorry, have paid for players like Paqueta that have far exceeded Milan's highest ever transfer fee, who is still Rui Costa, 20 years ago. Think about that. For Milan, AC Milan, one of the biggest clubs in the world, they haven't broken the world record transfer fee, which they might do this summer with Xerxes, but that's a whole different story. But yeah, that's why they won't be upgrading on Pulisic for many of reasons.
Xerxes, can you talk about him real quick? Xerxes, what position would he specifically play for Milan?
Yeah, so it's funny enough that Pulisic's father on his podcast was mentioning that he thinks Xerxes would be the best fit. He would be a number 9. He kind of drops
He
back
can play
more.
wide, right?
He could, I think technically, because he's such a talented player with the ball at his feet, he can kind of work like that. But I just think when Pulisic and Leao are good goal scorers in general, but they're not elite, I think Milan would need a bomber. Something that, I think Giroud's stats kind of skew in a different direction. I don't think he's been that dominant, but I think he's more of a distributing 9, like he's kind of like a 9.5. Like how Harry Kane plays sometimes where he drops back so deep. You're like, bro, please just get closer to the net. We need you to score. I think Milan need that type of player, but Xerxes is just going to be providing so much more service. I think he would be a better presser because Giroud is like, 36, 37 at this point. He can't be doing that 90 minutes out.
Well, and he's leaving, right? During the summer.
And he's likely leaving, if according to Tom Bogert of The Athletic. So again, I don't see him staying. I think the offer would be for him to even be a backup at this point. And at this point in his career, if you're Giroud, you can get a good wage at LAFC and you live in LA being the guy that he is. I think it would be better for him because he doesn't have that many years left to offer. So you might as well go and play in MLS if that's a desire of yours.
Yeah, and I think MLS he would become immediately the best looking player in MLS right away.
Easily, yeah. I think everybody would agree with that.
Sorry, Messi. It's going to be Olivier Giroud. But let's move on from Christian Pulisic and quickly talk about Musah. Musah will be a bit quicker. I just want to ask you one thing. We talked about how Pulisic was a success this season. No debate there. Yunus Musah seems to be a bit debatable, where some people think it's been a success. Some people think it's been as expected, while some people have said that he's a major disappointment. Keep in mind, Yunus Musah is just 21, so that has to be taken into context. Sure, if he was 28, I think it would be unanimous that it was a flop. He's 21, so there's been flashes of talent. There's also been some iffy moments. He does have issues with his passing. He does have issues in the final third, but there is a lot to work with there. So in your opinion, where would you rate his season? Disappointment, success, or just kind of like what you were expecting?
I think this is kind of what I was expecting. First of all, a lot of people have to understand the tactics in Serie A are really difficult to adjust to. Many players say this all the time. Even Cristiano Ronaldo, as of recent, was talking about how difficult it is to score in the league. So that's one of the best players of all time, having difficulty scoring, and he had insane seasons in Serie A.
That's the second best Ronaldo of all time.
Let's see, you're not going to get argument with me peak-wise. But the point remains, though, on how difficult it is to adjust. You're with a new team, new league, and you mentioned Musah's age. I think a lot of people kind of forget that. It doesn't matter how many minutes he's played. Mentally, if you're kind of where you're at in my late 20s, you're like, holy crap, I don't even know how I was surviving as a student in my early 20s. I can't even imagine adjusting to the U.S. men's national team and AC Milan like this. And to be quite honest with you, right now, there's better players in his position. So Milan knew that and what it's been, right? So, for example, for some people, to kind of just go back to what this project has been under this new ownership, Milan were the youngest ever team on average to win the Scudetto, right? So that team winning the title was incredibly young.
2 seasons ago, right?
Yeah, a couple of seasons ago, right? Because Napoli won it last year and Milan won the year prior. The way they build up this team, because they can't spend a lot of money, like I just mentioned before, you have to invest in younger players and hope they blossom and you develop them into great players. You've seen that with Leao, Tonali, before he left. Benacer was a player like that. Kessie, Teo Hernandez was, I guess, pretty good at Sociedad, but not the player he is today, obviously. So that's a part of that Milan project. So I think anyone expecting Musah to come in and dominate and be a starter week in, week out, doesn't know Stefano Pioli, you probably don't understand the Milan project to begin with, but that's okay. Musah's supposed to be this project over a couple of years. I think you've seen flashes, as you mentioned, and there's been some down moments. But what 21-year-old adjusting to a new team, a new system and league hasn't done that? If you're not adjusting to that, then you're probably going to be a world-class player at that point if you immediately adjust. Musah has sky-high potential. For example, a player like Francesi, that a lot of people like to compare him to because of their ball carrying abilities and physicality, he started off really poorly with Milan. I would even say Musa has arguably had a better season than he did, especially showing the flashes. I think if you say he's been a disappointment or a massive disappointment, I think you're far too harsh. I don't think you've been watching every single game of his or taking the proper context for it. I think Musa has been very solid. I wouldn't say he's been great. Musa on his day and his best matches, you're like, holy shit, excuse my language. This guy is going to be something special if he could put it all together. I think there's been certain decisions that you've mentioned as well in the final third that he could improve upon. And then sort of other errors, like they're playing Lecce this weekend. Unfortunately for him, that was his worst match that I've seen him play, where he had those 2 errors leading to goal, where Milan blew the 2-0 lead in that one, where he was subbed on as a right back. Whether or not that was the best decision by Pioli can be debatable, but some of those decisions by Musa were kind of amateur level mistakes, so it's kind of difficult to defend that. But overall, if you watch Milan over the years and you've seen certain players and the best players on this team right now kind of evolve over time, Musa's basically along the same path as those players, where you see flashes of brilliance and then other times they've struggled. But again, like I said, what young player hasn't?
I know Tonali arrived when he was younger. I think he was like 19 when he got to
He
Milan.
was 20. He just turned 21 when he arrived.
When he
So
arrived,
very similar age. Yeah.
and wasn't he? I wouldn't say poor, but just kind of like not
Brutal.
great the first
He was
season.
brutal at times. He was brutal at
Yeah.
times. It's very difficult for him to adjust. There was a lot of expectation. He was one of the top, Italian prospects at the time. He played at Brescia. He had this long hair. He grew up a Milan fan, so everybody immediately points to Andrea Pirlo, even though he plays like Gattuso, more better box-to-box midfielder. But he struggled mightily, very much like Musa had. And I would argue that they had very similar seasons. Again, struggling in the worst moments. Like Tonali had a red card in one game that was a terrible red card. It was like a studs up challenge where he got nowhere near the ball. Much like, like where he cost Milan a draw in that one against Benevento. And then you look at Yunus Musah with that kind of game. But they also showed flashes of brilliance of like, okay, once they calm down, once they adjust, once they stop making silly fouls like Musah has done at times, they're only going to get better. So I think people always judge off of the fact that, the player that they're supposed to be in 3 to 4 years is who they should be now. And that's a common mistake a lot of people make. So you have to be patient with a kid like this.
Okay, so I guess with Yunus Musah, that's a more optimistic outlook, and
yeah,
he'll probably be more judged upon his performances with Milan. 2 seasons from now will probably be 2 to 3 seasons, probably when Milan's like, okay, this guy's the real deal, or maybe we have to move on from him. So let's be patient and hope it works out. Martino, thank you very much. This has been a great episode, very insightful. We hope to have you back in the future, and I hope that we get to see the Americans lift a trophy with Milan at some point. If it's not this season, hopefully next season. Still got the Europa League.
Excuse me. Europa League is the best spot to do it. But yeah, I mean, it's either the greatest Serie A comeback of all time, or they have to beat Roma on their way to beating Leverkusen, one of the team we're going to be talking about 20 years from now at this rate. And then, just Liverpool in the final if you get there, most likely. So I think that would be a huge achievement for the team to sort of do that. But
almost
I would
sounds like
not
a Champions League matchup, right? Champions League road, like not really Europa League.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's just one of those years where Europa League is bizarre, where you have a Leverkusen team that, they still haven't lost a game. And almost every time it looks like they're about to lose a game, they come back and end up winning it in stoppage time. Patrick Schick is the greatest stoppage time player I've seen since the Fergie era. And on top of it, Liverpool, they look primed to win the Premier League at this point. So the way City have been playing, the way Arsenal kind of have, and those teams have huge Champions League matches coming up. But for sure, I think next year we'll see what happens with Inter. I think Milan could be primed to challenge for the title.
Yeah, just to close on the Europa League, I would argue Leverkusen and Liverpool, if they were in the Champions League right now, they would be legit contenders. I think that's
absolutely. Like you put them on PSG's bracket of the league or whatever you want to call it, of the tournament. Like they could really get to the final easily. I think they're better than any team that's there. I think PSG might be the best, and they're better than them.
Yep. Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a great day. Drop a like before you go, and make sure to go follow Martino on X. Thanks for watching, and have a great day. Bye-bye.